are you so silent? You need to release the energy. I just wanted to share an anecdote for today. So when we planned to, say, register at the Securities and Exchange Commission, our association organization, we went to that office and they asked us, "Oh, you have a new organization and you want this to be legal. Is this a Chinese organization?" So they saw LAUDATO. Do you want to translate it, or do you understand it?
Yeah.
Okay.
好，首先欢迎各位来到今天的演讲，大家不用那么的严肃，我们可以多多的活跃，多多互动。那为了抛砖引玉，我先讲一个意识来打开我们今天的气氛，知道吗？像我们这个组织在菲律宾成立之前，我们要去办一些合理登记嘛，你知道吗？其实那个时候我们去办事局登记的时候，那个承办人员居然问我说：“你们这个是中国组织吗？还是华文组织吗？为什么？因为他觉得 LAUDATO Si 发音听起来很像中文，所以他以为我们这个组织是跟中国有关的。
See, okay. In the Philippines, although we've been influenced by the Spanish, I would not say colonizers, but evangelizers, for about more than 300 years. And the ecological footprint that time had been so disappointing because we cut the trees to build churches, we extracted marbles to put those on the floor of our churches, among others. But there are good things that happened that taught us until now to protect our environment. Up to now, the strongest and biggest ally to protect the environment in the Philippines are the Christians.
好，我们菲律宾虽然曾经在西班牙，我不会说它殖民，但是在西班牙治理下有了300多年历史。那这个过往背景有一些好的、坏的。在坏的方面，它可能那个时候为了要盖很多教堂，可能砍很多树，为了要建立很多大理石的地板，所以也是挖掘了很多的石材。但是在负面以外，其实有一些正面的因素，也就是到了今天，我们在生态保育上最大的盟友，其实就是来自于我们的天主教。
And with the Christians, of course, we cannot deny the fact, the important role of our indigenous peoples. So together with the Christians, Catholics, and the indigenous peoples, we all together protect the integrity of creation. So that's why I would like to recognize the indigenous peoples, not only of the Philippines, but of this country called Taiwan.
那为了要把 LAUDATO Si 这样的精神推行到全世界，当然我们需要在地伙伴的协助，我们需要区域的。所以像我们的菲律宾以及这次来到台湾，都是我们有助于把 LAUDATO Si 发挥到全世界很重要的在地伙伴。
So the most formal commitment of the Philippine bishops, well, the Philippine church represented by the bishops, was in the year 1988. So formally, it's 36 years of ecological commitment. It's not working.
我们的历史可以，我们在这份努力上，我们历史可以追溯到1988年，到现在也36年了。我们菲律宾主教在1988年的时候，第一次发表了对于生态的承诺。
So, as I've said, it's 36 years of ecological commitment, and the first document to formalize ecological commitment is in 1980. And the title is What's Happening to Our Beautiful Land. It's the first time that the bishops talked about the farmers, the fishermen, the poor, the rivers crying, you know. It's so heartwarming that in a document of a very structured institution like Catholic Church, they at last talk about all these things.
这是天主教会第一次明文正式以正式文件来谈及对于农民、对于渔民、对于穷人的结构性的关忧。
And after that, many documents have been released by the Philippine Church. Just to note a few, after 10 years about mining, in 2000, they released Water is Life. Wow. It's a progressive document. Of course, scientifically, water is life because our bodies are made of how many percent water? Our world, the earth, is made of how many percent water? So even scientifically, more than the bishops declared that water is life. In 2003, of course, we know that following the our Greek Orthodox sisters and brothers to celebrate Creation Day and Creation Time, now we have Season of Creation. The Season of Creation, we do it September 1 until October 4. October 4 is what? The feast day of Saint Francis of Assisi. And in 2008, upholding the sanctity of life. Why is it that we included this statement in the ecological documents? Because sometimes, if you go to the United States, no? Being pro-life, there would life after birth, you stop being pro-life. You're not talking about human rights anymore. The plight of the immigrants, the plight of those who wish to live with dignity, among others. Here in Asia, if we think about sanctity of life, we talk about life before birth, after birth, and even life after death. And we put importance on that. And even in our cultures, that when we die, we reincarnate as other beings. And of course, 2013, that's the last document that we had. I'll be talking about another document later on. We know that we had Super Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines, one of the biggest hurricanes, as they may say, that hit the country and even other areas in Southeast Asia. And you know what? Before that hurricane devastated the Philippines, there was an earthquake. So it was really not so good year for the Philippines.
所以其实我们刚刚讲到说，在1988年之后，我们的天主教陆续有许多的正式文件、正式声明的 previous slide 来触及我们一些重要的议题，譬如说我们在1998年有处理到对采矿业、对矿业的担忧，在2000年的时候有提供到对水资源的担心，因为毕竟我们人体有70%是由水组成，那地球那更不用说，有许多都是由水所覆盖。那譬如说，另外在2003年我们有欢庆创造日、欢庆创造节，在2008年有提升我们对人性的圣洁，因为我们知道在西方文化，其实西方文化传统上是一个比较享乐主义，比较关注在此生当代的，但是在亚洲其实我们很不同，亚洲我们有轮回转生的概念，我们关注的不只是此生，我们有关注在出生之前以及死亡之后，我们关注的是一个全面性的轮回转生。那在2013年的时候，各位知道那个时候菲律宾其实屋漏偏逢连夜雨，有了海夜台风，又有地震，所以那个时候的天主教也发明了正式声明来关心我们的菲律宾。
So if you look at this photo, when I was in my elementary days, my science teacher would tell me, oh, there's an eye of a typhoon. There's an eye of a hurricane. And if you're at the middle of that eye, everything is so calm. So later on, I realized that due to the climate crisis, there has been so many typhoons in the Philippines. Like in just one view, you can get like 3 or 2 typhoons with 2 eyes. So, okay, but not only that. Although those eyes are small, but the effect is so big. The intensity is getting higher and higher. So, scientists would say it was because the heat in the surface of the ocean was so intense, and that triggered the typhoon to become a super typhoon. We did not have any intensity 4 and 5 before, but we got so many typhoons. We got signal number 1, 2, and 3. It was signal number 1. If I may ask our master of ceremony, my colleague, my mom, Atomashan, before, if it is signal number 1, a typhoon signal number 1, do we have classes or we have classes? Signal number 2, do we have classes? Yes, we have. But right now, in the Philippines, if we have like a little rain or a little blow of the wind, there will be no classes at all. It's holiday.
各位看到这个警报，2013年海夜台风起来的时候，那个时候我还是小学。那个时候我问我们班上老师说：“为什么台风眼中心是这么的安静的？”他说给我一些科学化的回答。但是我后来发现，其实很多台风它可能不只有一个台风眼，而且虽然我们看台风眼小小的，但是周围的气旋其实会让整个台风的威力更加的加大。那为什么会有台风呢？其实就是因为我们人类制造出越来越多的热气在海洋上产生对流，那这些对流会促使超级飓风、超级台风的更加形成。在菲律宾，我们有1级警戒跟2级警戒。在以前的话，1级警戒还是要上课，2级警戒还是要上课。但是到了现在，可能会有些改变。现在只要稍微有一点小风小雨，我们就停班停课了。
Good. As a matter of fact, if we talk about climate change, we talk about how a country impacted such for the longest period of time. We will be talking about climate science this afternoon. So we will not be talking about it today, this morning, but we'll invite you to go this afternoon. But it's all about carbon emissions. And carbon dioxide, as we know, is a greenhouse gas. It's greenhouse gas, if it's too much, well, carbon dioxide is natural. We need it. We produce carbon dioxide as well. And naturally, trees eat carbon dioxide. And in return, they give us oxygen. But if it is too much carbon dioxide, then it goes to the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is just the blanket. It's like a blanket of the earth. And when carbon dioxide is too much, like other greenhouse gases, our blanket is getting thicker and thicker, and extra heat cannot bounce back to space anymore. You know the science of greenhouse effect. And you'll learn from it. You'll learn about it later on this afternoon if you would like to. But the Philippines is responsible to 0.35% of emissions of global warming pollution. But we suffer the most. It's like other countries.
各位看到这个 0.35% 数，它代表什么呢？它代表是菲律宾在全球碳排量的比例，我们只有排放 0.35% 的碳排，但是却要蒙受非常严重的灾害，因为我们菲律宾的我们的岛屿，我们的国家地理位置是这样子的结构。那我们会讨论到 climate change， 我们会讨论到气候变迁，但是容我把这个科学性的话题留到下午的讲座，再跟各位的详细来分享温室气体还有碳排放等等的科学细节。
When Typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines, lack of food, no electricity, no water, but we had only our devotion and faith. When everything fails, when everything is not available, what we had was faith, and that gave us hope to move on. And this photo actually shows such faith.
这张图片可以看到，在海燕台风袭击菲律宾的时候， 我们断水断电，没有电，没有食物，没有清洁的水源，但是我们依然怀抱我们的信仰，怀抱我们的信念。只有信念就可以推出我们持续的向前迈进。
But faith without action or help is dead. So we need to act. We're not satisfied only with, I will pray and I will just wait for the assistance of the heavens, for me to move on. Or I will just pray for them to live, and I'll be inside my comfortable room. And I'll just send some help, some extra help.
但是信仰如果没有实际行动的话，它就是空话。所以我们也会有很多的实际的行动来做出来，搭配我们的信仰，一起来推动整个的我们的灾后救援。
So, fast forward, I'll let Bob be talking about Laudato Si first. But fast forward, there's this apostolic exhortation of Pope Francis that was issued in October 2023, because Pope Francis thought, well, I will not be reading the thought of Pope Francis, but this seems that it's showing that, okay, I'll do this exhortation. If we say exhortation, you need to do this. I emphasize that we need to act on this. So it's Laudate Deum is the title of it. It's just a Latinized Laudato Si. Laudato Si, praise be to you. Laudate Deum is praise God. Praise be to God. And that document highlighted one of the biggest ecological crises we have today. And that's, I said, all of these, what we do, and there's an impact. The most vulnerable is always affected. And the most vulnerable will always be the poor. Perhaps in our sharings later on, we need to define what is poor. Who is the poor? Who suffers the most? Sometimes we say poor, we don't have money, we're poor, we don't have resources, we're poor. Or perhaps those who have money, they may be poor in spirit.
所以为了要解决这全方面问题的时候，我们的天主教会我们就创立了Laudato Si。那这个其实是一个拉丁文的根源，根据我们要赞颂主愿你受赞颂这个拉丁文的根源来面临我们的整个生态危机的探讨。但是在面临整个生态危机探讨，其实我们要先定义到底是谁最会蒙受其害呢？到底是谁在面临生态危机最脆弱的时候，最脆弱的就是穷人。但是到底什么样叫做穷人呢？我们可能要先下一个定论，他到底是譬如说没有钱、没有爱，还是没有一些资源就是穷人吗？或者其实就算是富有的人，物质富有，但他心灵贫乏，那他可能也算是个穷人。
This was the impact of such super typhoon. 14 million people were affected. 1.1 million houses were actually destroyed. 33 million coconut trees. Coconut tree is life in the Philippines, just like rice in Asia. If you don't have rice, well, we had rice last night, but it was at the last the last course. But anyway, 2.3 million people pushed into poverty, and 13 billion cost of damages.
这边是海燕台风对菲律宾造成的灾损的统计，我们有400万人民受到影响，有1100多栋房子也受到影响，3300万棵椰子树受到影响，有230万人民坠入贫穷。那根据的统计是有130亿美金的估计灾损。
So that was 2013. And in 2013, Pope Francis sent his, message of concern for the Philippines. Not only because there was a typhoon, but also there was an earthquake before the typhoon. And Pope Francis decided to go to the Philippines in January 2015. He went to the area where people suffered the most, in a city called Tacloban. And he said, I cannot say anything anymore. This is what's happening. And if I may ask all of you to read this all together, these are very important words of Pope Francis. 1, 2, 3, go. Upon reflection, I remember in the most difficult moment in our Christian life, after the death of Jesus, we were so disappointed, depressed. And we remember that two disciples walking to Emmaus, on the road to Emmaus, or say Emmaus. These were the words of Pope Francis. Don't worry. Jesus walks with us and cries with us, because at the end we realize that He is indeed with us.
好，海燕台风对菲律宾造成的灾损，可以说是我个人感受在耶稣死后之后对我造成第二个非常大冲击的事件。那时候我非常难过。但是那个时候，在2015年1月的时候，教宗亲自来巡访，来探视菲律宾的灾区，因为那时候菲律宾先有地震，后有台风，造成非常大的灾损。那教宗来探视我们，并且用这句话来勉励我们，对此我感觉到信心倍增。
So, on his travel, on a plane, I think that was from Sri Lanka or going to Sri Lanka, Pope Francis announced, okay, I'll be releasing a document that was being written in progress. And I will release this in May 2015. And the title is Laudato Si. This may be the first encyclical with an Italian title. Almost all encyclicals are titled in Latin. So, what's Laudato Si? Of course, this is not a Chinese title. Laudato Si. And, well, this is the first two words of the Canticle of Creation of St. Francis of Assisi. I was so happy when we arrived here at the chapel, of the University Chapel, and I saw a cross. And a cross, and that cross, where's that cross? The cross of San Damiano. And it was so instrumental in the work of St. Francis of Assisi. And that Christ on that cross told St. Francis of Assisi, hey, rebuild my church. And you know, it is so inspiring that Laudato Si, the encyclical, is the canticle was from St. Francis of Assisi, and this was written by a man called Francis, who chose to be named after Francis of Assisi because of his love for the poor. And I was invited by another Francis to come here to Providence University. Francis be with you.
好，所以刚才讲那么多，我们讲到教宗来访视菲律宾区域，那在他回程的班机之后，他觉得需要来发行一个正式的通谕、正式的文件，来整理对世人的关怀。于是他就在2015年的时候，也是发行这个 Laudato Si 这个可以说是第一个用意大利文所写下来的通谕，因为之前的话都是用拉丁文来当做通谕的名称，那这个是第一次用意大利文来写的通谕。那这次也真的是非常的各种机缘冥冥中天注定。我来到静宜大学，那感觉到静宜大学的天主教氛围，那也感受到 Laudato Si 它背后的历史渊源。那而且这次又有神父来诚挚的邀请我们，所以真的是一切真的都是非常的感怀，真的是冥冥中有天注定，来这边发扬 Laudato Si 的精神。
And I was shocked that one passage in Laudato Si was actually adopted from the 1988 document of the Philippine bishops. And that is Laudato Si passage 41, who turned the wonder world of the seas into the into underwater cemeteries bereft of color and life. Who turned? That was a question. But these were also the words in that pastoral letter in 1988.
而且令我惊讶的是，Laudato Si 这份通谕居然有一段，它是节录自1988年菲律宾主教他那个时候发行的声明中的一段文字，如同节目上所示，所以这也是令我非常感到惊讶的。
So, 800 years ago, Saint Francis of Assisi, and he was the culprit of all this. Just a quick, very, very quick description of what Laudato Si is. So, of course, the first time that a document was released with a sole focus on the environment, on the action of the church, and it's the first Catholic document, of course, to tell us something about climate change, climate emergency. And as I have told the president, the principal yesterday, when I entered a nature reserve in the Philippines for us to have some reflections, it's called Mount Puro Nature Reserve. It's a park and it's a hotel. It has many trees. Then when I entered, I saw a big statue of Saint Francis of Assisi with the birds and the animals, and there's Laudato Si on top of the statue, the title. So I asked the owner, "Wow, who told you about Laudato Si?" Then I asked, "Perhaps the bishop, no, or a nun, a sister, or perhaps your parish priest." Then he answered back, "No, it's not the nun, it's not the bishop or the priest. So who told you about this Laudato Si?" Then the owner answered back, a Buddhist monk. So this encyclical, this document is not only it's not only for Catholics, it's for all. And even other faith communities are actually happy about this and making this document, as standard for their daily lives. I told Father Francis and other priests here, I remember Anthony de Mello, the Jesuit, the author, and some of his books were put in the index, the prohibited books, that he cannot defend those books anymore, like the Song of the Bird, the Songs of the Bird. And it talks about Buddhism, Oriental religion and spirituality. And now, actually, later on we'll know, Pope Francis is talking about all this already.
那么这份 Laudato Si 它到底有哪些重点的？这边帮各位归纳。其实第一个重点在于说，这份 Laudato Si 这份通谕，它是第一次把我们的教会放置于环境行动之后，也就是用教会的角度来关心整个环境行动。那同时，这也是天主教第一份正式声明，来直接的提及气候变迁的危机性及它的迫切。第三个，这份通谕它并不只是面向教徒，它也是面向全人类。之前我曾经看过一座雕像，它上面就写了 Laudato Si。我想说，是谁那么厉害去知道这个雕像上面要放 Laudato Si 的字样？我说，是修女吗？是神父吗？结果别人跟我讲说，不是，是一个佛教僧侣放的。他说，我就觉得很惊讶，因为这就凸显出 Laudato Si 它不只是给天主教徒，它也是面向全人类、全世界。在以前，天主教可能还会有一些禁书的年代，可能会禁止东方文化、禁止佛教等等。但是没想到，到了今天，我们的天主教已经可以面向全人类了。
Well, if Anthony de Mello is Jesuit, well, the Pope is Jesuit as well. Well, this is the very honest, this is the very focus of this. Everything is interconnected, and we cannot deny that fact. What I breathe in and breathe out, we share the same air to breathe. And everything is interconnected, and we will delve about it later on. Societal transformation of society begins with the transformation of heart. And in Greek, we call it metanoia, transformation of heart. But it does not stop there. if you transform yourself, you need also to influence others so that you can have a communal transformation or conversion. And Catholic social teaching with the focus on the environment, well, is obvious.
那这边也继续看到重点，我们这个重点在于说 everything is interconnected， 一切都是紧密关联的。我们真的无法否认，我们都活在地球上，我们共享一个地球，我们都是紧密相连的。那我们也看到这份通谕提及了社会转型，而且我们必须要做到，为了要做到社会转型，我们要从我们的心开始转型，从我们的心开始转，并且去影响他人，让更多人得到皈依，就能促使整个社会的转型。那当然我们也会有一些教会的一些教导，来实际上对一些我们的社群来做一些指示。
And after the encyclical, because 2015 is a very significant year, the Philippine bishops released another statement. The encyclical of Pope Francis was released May 24, 2015. Okay, so in the next few weeks, we'll be having Laudato Si week, and perhaps your universities would actually start, planning for it, even simple celebration and observance. And 2015, because you have the Conference of Parties on Climate Change. In 2015, that was in Paris. So we have a document called the Paris Agreement. No, I will be learning about it later on. You may Google it. And there's another document about disasters, and it's the Sendai Framework. And the other document is the Sustainable Development Goals. That was in September 2015. No? From Millennium Development Goals, we have Sustainable Development Goals. We have 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So later on, we'll be talking about how similar or how different SDGs and Laudato Si is. So in 2015, the bishops released such a document.
在2015年是一个相当重要的年份，因为那个时候国际环境有许多的重要会议，比如说发表了巴黎协议，来谈到全球的气候变迁。那有对于灾害，对于许多的结构性的框架公约。那个时候也发布了联合国的永续发展指标，有17个指标。那为了回应这些指标的话，那个时候的2015年的菲律宾主教也是发明了这份声明，来回应全球化的气候议题。
The question: what really happened to our common home? This may be a question, but this is the first chapter of Laudato Si. What is happening to our common home? You remember the title of the Philippine statement in 1988 is What's Happening to Our Beautiful Land? And the first chapter of Laudato Si is What's Happening to Our Common Home? Common home. And if I may ask all of you, what really happened to our common home?
让我向各位提出个询问，请各位回答我，到底我们美丽的家园发生了什么事呢？
Let's watch this video.
我们一起来欣赏这部影片。
So a little bit of reflection. That happened, of course. But I would like to follow it up with another question. Who did it? But first, I would like to ask, what are we? What are we in?
我们当然要问说是谁造成了这些状况，但是在此之前，我们要先反思，先自问，我们到底是什么？
All right, so we'll have a recitation. Can I count? Can you give me a number? One. Okay, I'll count one. One. This is how I teach when I was still teaching. Your name? Your name. Itchy Chen. I pronounce it good. If I may ask you, what are you? You're a human in this world. Can you please give me a number? Not your cell phone number. 3. 1, 2, 3. Please stand up. Can you ask him in Chinese? What are we?
我们到底是什么？
You're confused? Yes, yes.
我们是一个创造者，也是一个
We're creator, we're grower, we grow. Thank you. How about a round of applause? These are the questions that are very difficult to answer. I may say, oh, I'm a human being. And some would say, what? I am. Well, God would say, I am who am. Then another question would follow.
我们再看下一个问题，
Who are we? Who I am? Who am I? Now we go into the second chapter of Laudato Si. So we think about what's happening now. And then Pope Francis said, okay, let's start from the gospel of creation. That's chapter 2 of Laudato Si. So we need to know ourselves. You know what? That's why Moses asked, who are you? And God said, I am who I am. And, he revealed his name to Moses. Because naturally, we cannot love whom we do not know. Can I love you if I do not know you? Sometimes in other cultures, the pre-arranged marriage, and when the man, at last saw the face of the woman, and that he wasn't able to see that woman, and then the man would say, "No, I cannot, make that as my wife because I do not know her." But we respect that culture.
好，接着我们就要进入到我们Laudato Si的第2章，也就是我们要问 Who are we？ 我们到底是谁？那这个问题其实它看起来跟上面可能类似，但其实就问我们要先认识自己。譬如说，我们无法去爱一个我们不知道是谁的人。举个例子，古代都会有一些指腹为婚，或者是长辈安排、父母安排的姻亲的相亲，但是小朋友他们并不知道，我们到底要跟谁结婚？你看不到他的脸，那你怎么可以去喜欢一个你没有看过脸的另外一半呢？
So, if we go back to the gospel of creation, it's ironic because it's the gospel and then we have creation. It's the Old Testament and the New Testament. I would say I'm a child of God. Who are you? Who am I? I would say I'm a creature. I'm a human being. And the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth, and sixth, all of these were created. We all know that in Genesis. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small. Don't translate it, it's too long. It's a poem. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great, and you know that, sister. The Lord God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, He made their glowing colors. He made their tiny wings, the purple-headed mountains, the river running by, the sunset in the morning, brightens up the sky, the cold wind in the winter, the pleasant summer sun, the ripe fruits in the garden. He made them every one. He gave us eyes to see them and lips that we might tell how great is God Almighty, who made all things well. The word well, the word good, and it was good. So hard to interpret that, but you need to interpret later on. So who am I? Am I a creation of God? Am I creation of God? And how about others? The birds and the bees. I'm having goosebumps. I'm having goosebumps. Sister, that's the secret number one that I wish to tell you. Next. Of course, naturally, in the Catholic catechism, in the Catholic faith, we always say, we are made in the image and likeness of our Creator, the image and likeness of God. Yes? Yes. Okay.
所以我们刚才会说，那Who are we？我们是谁呢？我们可能是上帝之子，我们是上帝的创造物，我们是生物，我们是人类。根据创世福音的话，我们刚才朗读的这些诗篇，我们根据到神花7天创造世界，那有许多的曼妙之处，一切都是根据良善所达到。那所以进一步我们看到，我们都知道说，上帝依其形象创造我们。
This may be the Western thought that separates man from the rest of creation. But I would like to go near sister. And what's your name, sister? Marita from Germany and Taiwan. Yes, yes. And Philippines, of course. In Germany, we'll be talking about Naturwissenschaften and everything, but we talk about God. But if you look at the next slide, this is what sister, the Creator becomes a maker. And the next slide, we are made in the image and likeness of. That's your point, sister. This is not taught in the catechisms. That's right, because as I have said, sister, that was the Western thought. But perhaps Pope Francis realized Jesus is Asian. And our faith comes from Asia. And that our thought is non-compartmentalized. It's holistic. So it's time to, say, Jesus is Asian. No, we're not talking about, being divided. But if you go back, let's distinguish. Creation comes from the Latin creatio, ex nihilo, from nothing. Hence, we sometimes advocate the Big Bang Theory. From nothing. But human beings, are we from nothing? Father, we're not from nothing. We're from something else. And that's the point of sister. That we are also made. But we're part of the whole of creation. And that's the first step that we need to recognize that we come from oikos, the Greek word for household. We come from creation in itself, and we are one with creation. So, you interpret, please.
我们看到 creators become a maker， 我们要先来区分到底 creator 跟 maker 有什么差别呢？其实 create 这个字来自于它希腊字的根源 creatos。那这个希腊字的根源，它讲的其实是从虚无开始创造。那这可能会牵涉到一些大霹雳理论、宇宙的 大霹雳理论，但是我们就问说，人真的是从虚无而生的吗？人真的是从虚无而生吗？其实不是哦，人他是有根据一个某个根据所创造出来，因此说我们要有一个很重要的认知，人并不是从虚无而生，人是从一个形象而生的。那从这个形象而生的话，我们并不是采取一个隔离片段式的思考，而是要采取一个全面性，我们就是 We are one， 我们是全面一家的这样的全面性思考。
So, because you answered the question this morning, lastly, can you give me a number? 7. A good number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not my fault. It's his fault. You understand English? Yes. What did you eat for breakfast this morning? Bread. So bread is made of flour. So flour is made of wheat. Okay. So you ate only bread? Bread with milk or egg? Milk. So you have tea and milk. Milk comes from cow. So right now I'm looking at a smiling cow. The cow be with you and also with you. You are what you eat. But above it all, you represent the whole of creation. You're made out of stardust, of nickel, iron, of birds, of pollens, of worms. Because the worms will eat you later. And the worms will become you. We come from the earth. And we're part of the whole of creation. That's the first step. To know ourselves. And to understand why there's a need to protect others. Because we are part of the whole of it.
所以刚才我们询问来宾说，来宾到底是早餐吃什么？其实我们所吃的 We are what we eat， 我们所吃的就会成为我们。所以无论是我们喝了牛奶、吃了麦，我们就会成为那个东西的代表。那同样的，当我们死后之后，可能我们会腐化，可能会由虫蠕虫来帮我们腐蚀掉。那或许那个乳头就会成为我。所以其实我们要传达就是一个整体的概念。我们来自于地球，我们代表地球，我们采取这个 holistic， 采取一个全方面的概念。
So as I've said, sister is right. We are from oikos, the Greek word oikos, household. But in the making, the process of making human beings, like the first day of Lent is all about reminding us about who and what we are. Who? Because we are, of course, made in the image and likeness of our Creator, and the image and likeness of the whole of creation. What we are, of course, we are workers. Because the very reason why we were made, it was because the Creator needs someone to take care of all things. And there are 4 Hebrew words used in that moment of making. The first Hebrew word is rada, to rule or to manage the whole of creation, the garden. But if we say rule with force, rule with violence, no. Because if God is love, we need to rule with love and compassion. That's the first job. Well, the first job description. The second job description is kabash, to subdue, to let it be for the development of others, to let the flowers bloom, to let the rivers flow, to let the birds fly, to ensure that all these natural processes are in place. The next is serve. Abad. Serve because if there are other disruptions in the natural processes, and if the bird cannot fly because some human beings disrupted its flying, what would you do? Help that bird. Preserve the endangered species for the development and progress of other beings as well. If that big tree is being cut, it's not only the tree that will be dead, but other living beings or beings living in that tree. So we need to make it sure that it is in place. And lastly, we have shamar, keep, protect them. Why is it that we had COVID? Because we actually, studied the bats, and the bats, they have virus there. So we actually disturbed the life of a bat, and then the virus transferred to another. Then we had COVID-19 pandemic. So these four, if we go back, Rada, Kabash, Abad, Shamar. That's the job description we have.
我们这边讲到四大定义，那这个是根据犹太文的，我们根据犹太文的字源，我们来探索。第一个，我们看到 Rada， 它其实是 rule 去 manage 去管理去统治，但这个统治并不是用暴力，而是用爱来关怀，用爱来治理一切。那么有看到 Kabash 就一个促成，我们要让好的东西可以继续发展，去促成。我们也看到 serve， 去服务。譬如说，如果鸟不飞的话，我们可以受到损害，或者是假设树木倒塌，可能很多上面的生物也会受到损害，因此我们也会去协助去服务它们，让树可以恢复原状，去协助鸟可以继续飞行。那最后我们也看到我们的 Shama 看到其实就是保护。为什么之前爆发新冠疫情？那其实因为就是有人去吃蝙蝠，去干扰了蝙蝠的生命运行，所以其实我们要去保护不同的物种。
So, in Greek, we have also another word. That's nomos. It's kind of taking care, preserving the balance, customs, it's management. So we have two words now. Oikos, nomos. And that's economy. Because the real meaning of economy is not about the law of supply and demand. It's not about profit. It's not about taking more and more for your own good. But this, in one word, being steward. Being stewardship, these are the job descriptions. We were made because we have a job to do, not to harm ourselves and the whole of creation.
所以我们看到，其实就是 oikos 加上 nomos， 就是我们最近的定义。那其实就是我们回到 economy 这个字，它其实跟数学无关，其实跟金钱无关，其实跟获取更多无关。它其实核心的就是我们都是服侍者，我们要去服侍、去照顾一切。我们人被创造出来，并不是要去掠夺、去侵害其他生物，我们创造出来是要去执行我们的工作，去服务、去服侍。
So, because the best model for economy is the model of creation. So, the first part, the second part, gospel of creation. Of course, our faith, the light of faith, one of the issuances of Pope Francis, Lumen Fidei. This is our faith, and our faith must have compassion to care for others. And dominion, if we say rule, is not actually disturbance of the whole of creation. It's not promoting imbalance. It's not an excuse for over-exploitation. It's not only nature. It's deeper than that. Creation is deeper than, nature, the environment, because it also has the element of relationships. Well, we have philosophies and we have rules, but private property is not absolute nor inviolable. Because, common home, it's us. It's owned by, not owned, but we are only stewards. Remember the parable of the talents. We're all stewards. We need to take care of it. We need to guard it. And of course, the fact that our relationship with God, with our neighbor, and with earth have been broken. How was it broken? And we're now entering into the new chapter of Laudato Si.
这边我们看到创世福音，我们归纳几个重点。第一个，我们可以看到是信仰驱动我们去照顾他人。第二，我们看到主宰统帅其实并不是滥用，并不是过度开采的理由。第三个，我们看到创造并不只是跟自然有关，它其实也跟关系有关，所以它的意义更加深远。第四，我们看到私有物、私有财，它并不是非常绝对，并不是无可违背的，因为我们就生活在地球上。但是我们真的拥有地球吗？其实我们只是地球的服侍者。那最后一个，我们看到跟上帝的关系、跟邻居的关系，以及跟我们大地的关系。
The question, therefore, what have we done? Have I done something wrong?
我们做了什么吗？我们做了什么错事吗？
This is the second secret. The second secret is this. So if I may ask, okay, I'll go here. I'll go and ask for the number. Can you give me a number? Number 4. It's his sin. Huh? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Who was at fault during creation? Adam or Eve? All. Okay, all. And we have another character there that had no name. Okay. So it may be all, but who prompted Eve and eventually Adam to eat the fruit of the tree of good and evil? Who? The evil one. The evil one? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is the evil one. It's the serpent, as I may say. Okay. What was the question? Do you want to be like him? Eat that.
所以我们刚刚讨论到说，到底是谁促使你去吃禁果？根据我们的声音是那条蛇。那我们刚才有讲到一个提问 ，You elaborate that. So, what do you want to elaborate that?
Why was it that they were prompted to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? The question was actually, you want to become God, like him.
因为其实是我们想要有分辨善恶能力，所以促成我们去吃的禁忌，像神一样。
So, remember that question. Who prompted and what prompted? Who was at fault? Adam or Eve or the devil? Oh, and sister said, yeah, we have the freedom of choice. And the freedom of choice is that, well, we give you, perhaps that's why the wilderness outside the paradise was also made. It should teach us something. So, what was the root cause of all this? Because we wanted to become God. You can actually do all things except for one. Because until now, there are things in this world that should not be destroyed nor broken. Even during creation time, there is only one. There was only one. I give you the freedom of choice, but you have no choice. No, you have the freedom of choice. But I have only one condition. Do not eat that. Only one. Right now we have so many choices. Right there, you get only one choice. Yes or no. But you have that freedom. Are we tested? Then the root cause of all evils, the root cause of all this crisis is that we wanted to have power. And disobedience was there. Greed. To have more. And that was reenacted when Jesus was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. And the devil went there again. Oh, kneel before me. I have the power. I give you the power. Huh? Man cannot live in bread alone. You jump and the angels will save you. But it's more on power. And that actually the original sin was an ecological sin. And that we do it again and again. Because natural processes there would disrupt the processes of nature. We do it again and again.
所以，其实根据刚才的故事，我们可以学到，其实，在圣经故事中，上帝给予我们许多的选择，但唯独一个不能做，就是你不能去吃那个禁果，这是我们唯独不能做的事情，其他都是可以选择。但为什么我们还是会想这么做呢？因为其实人性就是贪婪，人性想要更多，人性想要权力，因此，所以其实罪恶渊薮、万恶的根源，其实就是我们的贪婪，我们想要更多。那这个其实也会回归到我们所讨论到 ecological sin， 我们想要更多，我们截取更多，我们渴望更多，因此去打乱自然生态的作息。
So what's the choice? Let's bring back the real meaning of economy. Harmony. Yin-yang. Equilibrium. And what was the solution? The solution was actually, when Noah, God told him, do the ark. It's like, your chapel is like an ark of Noah. Then eventually they've been waiting for that Messiah to come. And we all know that how God so loved the world, He gave us His only Son, Jesus Christ. There was a passage in one of the letters. Although He was in the form of God, Jesus did not deem equality with God something to be grasped. Rather, He emptied Himself and took the form of a slave, being known in the likeness of men. We are thrown out to the wilderness, but God showed that there's a way, and we need to empty ourselves from greediness and power. Jesus showed us the way, and through parables, through stories of ordinary people, of the birds and the bees, the farmers planting, the foxes, and even walking on the road to Emmaus, He showed us the way on how to take care of this. The Good Samaritan, the prodigal son, the parable of the talents. He showed us the way on how to take care of it. And at the end, the wine, the bread, we need to take care of all this, because if we have drought, we cannot grow grapes. And if we don't have grapes, we don't have wine for the Mass. The wheat, we don't have bread for the Eucharist. And these are all interconnected. So that's why we have the gospel of creation, because from the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jesus was also there. That's why chapter 2 talks about the gospel of creation and the principles, and that we need to recognize that we come from creation, and that the first sin was actually an ecological sin. And the key for that is to accept that we need to become economists, little economists, and bring back the real meaning of economy. Because the economy, right now, we talk about profit and power, and that degrades humanity. It's difficult to interpret.
好，所以其实我们刚刚一路讲过来，我们的第2章，我们的创世福音，其实就是透过一系列的圣经故事来告诫我们，我们要去明了 economy， 去了解经济。economy 这个字的真意，它其实代表的是 harmony 和谐，还有均衡、调和、均势 equilibrium。那唯有在我们真正理解 economy 这个字的意思之中，我们才能把这个字用来克服我们的生态原罪，克服我们的原罪。因为经济我们现在知道，它并不是跟钱有关，并不是跟利益，并不是跟贪婪有关，它其实要做到的是调和还有均衡。
So we talk about balance and equilibrium. And, the first chapter was actually talking about all these, what's happening to our common home. And Pope Francis highlighted many things, but this, of course, are the most important things that we need to look at. What's happening to our common home? The throwaway culture, we throw and throw, because we regard all this, some things that we acquire as useless anymore, so we throw. But it's actually is the way of thinking that we always throw and throw because we have this kind of mindset. It's waste. Is there waste really in our lives? How about you throw biodegradable things? Well, it's not waste. You can turn it into compost and fertilizer. Well, friends, highlight, of course, climate change. It's all about climate as a common good. Who was responsible to our present climate crisis? Perhaps bigger nations and poor countries who are not really the cause of all this are suffering the most. So there's a kind of problem of equity and equality and moral responsibility, because according to Pope Francis, climate is a common good. It is meant for all and enjoyed by all, not only, a chosen few. And of course, we all know all this, loss of biodiversity. We get our medicine from biodiversity. We get our clothing from biodiversity. We get our medicine from those flora and fauna. We get all these, our houses, the basic needs of people, who get it from biodiversity. And then when we disrupt the processes of flora and fauna, in science, the symbiotic relationship, when we disrupt it and control it, then many things will follow which are not good for humanity and other creatures as well. So we exploit, and there's a gap, bigger gap between nations and between people, the rich and the poor. The rich becomes richer and the poor becomes poorer. And there's inequality in more ways than one. And we are now prone to conflicts over resources. When I arrived here in Taiwan, my first time, 2 hours from Taipei, coming to Taichung, we saw a lot of forests. And I told myself, wow, we have about more than 50% of your forest being protected. You protect that because you protect biodiversity. Because if you have more trees, you have water, among others. But at the end of the day, if you mine, for example, minerals, and the poor becomes poorer and the rich becomes richer, you have conflict. Perhaps that's why we have conflict in South China Sea. We pray that it will be, resolved soon. And the territories, they wanted to have more land, because they need more resources. Sometimes it's political, but it's not only political.
所以我们看到这个老大都 C， 它有一个很重要的副标题，就是到底我们的共同家园发生了什么事情呢？ 发生哪些现象呢？我们看到许多我们的丢弃文化，很多东西其实它可以回收可以再利用，但是我们依然把它丢掉，有这样的状况。那教宗也提出我们的气候变迁，还有气候变迁，气候它其实是一个共有财，它其实是我们人类共同的道德责任。我们也提到生物多样性的损失，有许多的物种正在绝种，很多的共生关系正在濒临毁灭。那这其实都会导致到我们的国家还有我们国家人民之间的冲突，富者越富，贫者越贫这样子的极端化演变。我们因此也会有许多的不平等现象逐渐出现。那这些东西都可能会导致冲突日益加剧。譬如说，举我们附近的案例，在南中国海，可能中国它可能就会为了资源或者是政治性的意图，然后来做出更多的攫取，更多的冲突。
So, first, we have the first chapter asking us what's happening to our common home. And Pope Francis said, okay, let's go back to the Gospel of Creation, just chapter 2. Now, we realize that indeed, the original sin is an ecological sin. When we destroy creation, we destroy our relationships, and we actually is sinning. Chapter 3 provides us with what are the root causes. We know the root cause generally in Christians, in Catholic tradition, would always be, greed. Greed for power. I need to have more. I want it to be like God. You have the desire to be God. Just like Jean-Paul Sartre, a philosopher, would always say. Technocratic paradigm. Those who are in power, those who have more, controls others. Like, for example, in the United Nations, when we resolve conflicts, if the U.S., for example, would say no, they have more aids to smaller nations. So other nations would vote, okay, what the U.S. would say, we will just follow. Or what China would say, we will follow because they control us. Those who have economic power will control decisions. And how about the poor? Because Laudato Si is not only talking about the environment. We talk about the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Those who are most vulnerable and affected.
这本看到到底是这些生态危机到底是因为哪些人类因素所促成的？第一个我们看到是技术官僚的典范。技术官僚算是近代人类兴起，它可能会因为有为说，人类或者说某个国家，你拥有的知识越多，权力又越多。但是这可能会导致一些现象，比如说在联合国，你可能就是因为国家比较大，经济力比较雄厚，所以你就有比较多的话语权，进而去忽略那些小国或者是那些比较贫穷的国家。那这些都可能是技术官僚所造成的一些现象。
Technology, is it a sign of progress? Okay, an activity, this experiment, hold your cell phones, your mobile phone. Please
请
hold
大家
them.
拿起自己的手机，
Hold them. Okay, open your messengers.
打开你的通讯软
If you
体，
have Facebook
比如
or
说
WhatsApp,
Facebook，
just open it.
打开任何通讯软体。
So now you communicate and you read messages.
看看里面的讯息。
And there's a sickness right now. So just look at your cell phones
好，继续看你的手机，
and look at your neighbor's seatmate.
看看你旁边左右的邻居。
So sometimes, if you have your phones, like, Father, can I borrow your phone? I will not read your message. There's a sickness right now. When you have meetings, you do like this. And then when somebody calls you, you just do like that. And good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So there's a research that one of the sicknesses, one of the diseases people would have would, your head would always like this. So the future Homo sapiens, the posture would be this way. Very respectful. How? But it's not good. Technology should prompt us to be healthy. Your well-being should be good. It is to be used for the integrity of creation, integrity of humanity, not to destroy natural processes. Because at the end of the day, technology is mimicry of nature. You mimic nature, your buildings, etc. You show how wonderful nature is, how natural technology, in quotation mark, is good for humanity. But it's not only for the good of humanity. It should also for the good of other beings. Well, you love this flower, but is it lovely to look at fresh flowers? This one should prompt us to look for the real flower. This is technology, right? Artificial. But this one should inspire us to plant more flowers like this for us to enjoy. We saw the Burj Khalifa. Burj Khalifa looks like a bamboo shoot. Bamboo shoot. We need to tell them, okay, it's a bamboo shoot. You need to look for it in real life. This chapel is like a bamboo shoot, as described there. And it will prompt us to plant more bamboos. So technology is not for our comfort. Well, it is for our comfort. Comfort because we learn from nature's own mechanisms, own systems. Is it right that if we learn from the mechanism of natural process of symbiotic relationships, we leave them dead already? Because we got the wisdom, the technology, the skills and knowledge from nature. We have a debt from nature. Because it's not only we exploited nature physically, we also exploited nature intelligently. Because we learn from its own skills. But what did we do? Technology now destroys nature and even relationships.
所以我们看到，我要问自己，科技真的就是代表全然的进步吗？其实透过刚才的活动，我们请大家拿起手机，其实会发现，当我们已经习惯用手机，其实你的头会越低，你可能会肩颈酸痛，你可能会进而去忽略你周遭的人，反而一直盯着你手机。所以科技让手机进步，但是手机真的有让人类进步吗？我们是不是越来越卑躬屈膝，越来越肩颈酸痛，越来越低？那其实这个科技可能并没有让我们人类真正进步。好的科技应该是向自然学习，做到一个仿生，来做到一个对人性、对自然的追求。譬如说，我们桌上的人造花，看到人造花，其实它是一种科技，但是这个人造花，它其实去促使我们去了解真正的花朵，对自然花朵更加尊重，去栽种更多的花。当我们看到一栋建筑物，它可能是仿生，可能是去模仿竹子或者模仿树木的形状去造成的建筑物，我们要做的是感怀这份体验，然后去栽种更多的树木，而不是只停留在对科技表面的理解。所以好的科技它是去学习自然的，我们是要去学习它的机制，而不是去杀害自然的机制。我们要去善用，而不是去剽窃、去剥夺大自然的智慧。
So I will just enumerate. We still have a little bit of time. I'll just enumerate the highlights of Pope Francis. Modern anthropocentrism. We all know this. We put more emphasis on us, but not with other beings, with other flora and fauna, with the world. Add value only. We always value natural use, material use. And there's the solution in Pope Francis. It should be integral ecology. And this is the Oriental kind of thought, of school of thought. Should be holistic, all integrated. We talk about prosperity, we talk about environment, nature, and we talk about relationships. So this is the model that Pope Francis would like us to do, would like us to follow to protect creation, and to protect the environment.
所以为了回应这些挑战，教宗提出的解方就是 Integral Ecology 总体生态学。那这个概念其实相当的东方，因为它是全一性，它是天人合一的。我们要去关注社会，去关注环境，去关注还有甚至经济的生态学，用全方面的角度来看待这些挑战。
think of the common good, but not only of the now, but also learning from the past, addressing the needs of the now, and also ensuring that the future is secured. And that's what we call intergenerational justice. So the solution for Pope Francis is this one.
这份解法应该可以做到我们对公共财、对于我们更好的对现况重视，而且不只是现在，也对于未来的世代，也是一个跨世代的解决、跨世代正义。
There are many lines of approaches. I'll share this with you. Number one, of course, fossil fuels on climate change. Inclusive and transparent decision making. Well, I'm surprised. We could talk about creation, we talk about the environment, we talk about governance. Think globally, act locally. About profits, do not put focus more on it. Science and religion together. And we all know that. And there are things that are new that we need to adjust and adapt.
那有许多途径跟措施我们可以采取的，譬如说我们要去排除，尽量减少石化燃料的使用，我们要全球思考，在地行动，我们可能要纳入更公开透明的治理，还有我们许多的科技以及宗教，还有新常态，以及拒绝利益最大化等等，都是我们可以善用的途径。
And this will lead us towards ecological conversion, which is a communal conversion.
就可以让我们得到一个生态归一的状态。
So this is, I'm ending my sharing with this. Would 10 minutes would do? 10 minutes? Okay. So if you are unable to read Laudato Si, the dicastery for promoting integral human development, before it's for Pontifical Commission on on justice and peace. They said, okay, we'll do goals. We have 7 Laudato Si goals that have actually targets and indicators. So if we have sustainable development goals, Laudato Si has goals as well. Huh? So these are the 7 goals of Laudato Si. Response to the cry of the earth. We listen to the cry of the cutting of trees, the polluted rivers, and we need to respond to the cry of the poor, because the poor, the farmers, the most vulnerable, they depend on the bounties of the seas and the forest. And if these are destroyed, then their profit, their livelihoods are also affected. We need to adopt sustainable lifestyles. Ecological education, we will put emphasis on this in the closing of this sharing, ecological spirituality and community resilience. No? Next, please. Just take photo of it. So we have 7. And how does this complement what sustainable development goals? First, response to the cry of the earth. And this complements climate action, clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy, life below water, life on land.
所以我们这边看到说，老大头 C 他得为我们列出7大我们的纲领目标。这7大目标其实就是覆巢之下焉有完卵，只要生态环境受到破坏，那人类其实就活不下去了。因此，我们制定出这7大目标，如同我们简报上面所看到。那接下来我们就会一一的为各位看到。对，第一个我们会回应大地的呼喊，回应穷人，回应大地的呼唤。那下面我们看到的数字，我们13、6、7、14，这边就是我们看到我们会具体执行到我们的策略。譬如说，我们执行到我们的清洁水源，还有我们可负担的清洁能源，还有我们关注到鱼类生态，还有关注到我们陆地上的生态，这些都是我们第一步我们可以做到的具体方向。
Is the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs.
好，这是我们联合国永续发展目标的项目。
The second Laudato Si goal is the response to the cry of the poor. And this actually responds and addresses the targets and indicators of Sustainable Development Goals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16, 17, and 10.
那在这下面的话，也是我们看到我们在 SDG 有相对应的指标，呼应到我们这边回应穷人的呐喊。
Number 3, ecological education. And we will highlight this later on. And this responds to SDGs 4, 1, 3, 5, 10, 12, 13, and 16.
好，所以在我们有看到我们的4135、42这些数字，就是联合国我们的永续发展指标，对，相对应到我们的这边生态教育的部分。
Laudato Si goal number 4 is about ecological spirituality. It's deep, but we talk about the gospel of creation, and this comprises also 16, 1, 4, 5, 10, 13, 14, and 15.
那第4章是我们的生态灵修，那分别对应到 SDG 下面我们这些几个目标。
Next is Laudato Si goal number 5, ecological economics. So we have businesses, we have agriculture, farmers, and this will actually address the targets and indicators of SDGs 8, 1, 7, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 17.
在第5章看到的是我们的生态经济，那也分别对应到 SDG 我们对一些农业还有对一些产业的一些指标。
And we have Laudato Si goal number 6, community resilience and empowerment. That's 6, number 6. Balik. Missing one. I think it's okay. Let me check that. It means it is okay. Anyway, we have number 6 is is about ecological spirituality. When we go back, please go back to number you have all the Laudato Si goals. That one. Ecological spirituality, community, empowerment, ecological spirituality, and ecological education. Sustainable adoption of sustainable lifestyles. Yeah, sustainable, and we'll share that with you. Okay, let's jump to number 7, community resilience. We need to support communities. We need sharing, just like the associations, helping schools, helping communities in need.
那第7我们看到我们的社群赋权，让我们都有能力来一起来参与。
Okay, this is very important. So in our analysis, there are differences between the 2 goals, the SDGs and Laudato Si. No? See, SDGs is about the future, that we will have a good future. Laudato Si reflects on the state of the now. We need to address it now. We need to look at the faces of people. And the focus is more on defining and rebuilding the individuals or social groups' relationships with others. SDG is all about, okay, we need to achieve this. But Laudato Si, we need to fix our relationships with nature and with other people. Resources. That the use of resources has already exceeded the ecological limits without alleviating poverty. And the focus of the SDGs is the efficient use. Next. And there are the root causes of global issues, approach on economics, and call to action. We'll give you a copy of this. We have a soft copy of our analysis.
好，所以在这边我们可以看到 SDG 跟Laudato Si 它的对照表有表格，那内容很多，但是不用担心，我们会为各位准备纸本的讲义供各位参考。
Okay, so we have a copy of this. So Living Laudato Si Philippines has produced a handbook of the SDGs and Laudato Si. And if you wish to have actual books, just tell us. You may ask us to we can send you. Yeah, right. Next, please. So in closing, we have sectors. So the Church, the Holy See, has actually classified sectors on where we can actually work. There are 7 sectors to achieve Laudato Si goals, and you have groupings. The first group is, this is the board. Living Laudato Si in the board, and we call it Laudato Si Action Platform. If you wanted to know more, it's laudatosiactionplatform.org. The first sector is families and individuals. The second sector We have the parishes, dioceses, archdioceses, and episcopal conferences. Number 4, you have, of course, the educational institutions, the healthcare institutions, the organizations and groups, associations, and lastly, we have the economic sector, that's number 6. And number 7, you have the religious. The religious, actually, you have the largest sector because you own hospitals, you own schools, you own institutions, you run parishes as well. So it's very, very important to put emphasis on the religious sector.
那为了让这个老大都 C 的作用能够发挥，教廷为我们制定了7大的工作团体的区域。那我们可以看到有许多的工作团体分别列到这些。那具体来讲，我们可以看到刚才第一个，比如说 first， 我们首先要看到其实就是自我还有家人，先从我们个人身边做起。那接着我们会看到许多的教区，不同的管辖区域。那当然教育各级单位学校，还有在不同的 NGO 组织、不同的政治经济单位，还有在我们最后的宗教组织，像是医院啊，或者是学校，或者是各种学院、书院等等，都会有分门别类的职责来执行。
Okay, so you have parishes, dioceses, educational institutions, healthcare institutions, organizations, groups, economic sector, religious. And the educational institution is very, very important. I think we need to embed the documented Pope Francis on the young people, for the educational institutions. Christus Vivit. We have now the root. We have now Laudato Si. We have the teachings already. So, in Laudato Si, young people demand change. They wonder how anyone can claim to be building a better future without thinking of the environmental crisis and the sufferings of the excluded. This passage in Laudato Si, I think, would prompt us all to be Laudato Si schools.
那这些呼吁其实也是代表我们对教育的重视，因为教育其实就是培育年轻人，我们希望把这样子的希望在年轻人中心扎根，因为年轻人其实很渴望改变，渴望一个更好的方式来让地球更完美，所以这也可以促成我们很多的Laudato Si我们这样子的学院，我们这样的教育来促成这样子的事情发生。
And in Laudate Deum, the apostolic exhortation, Pope Francis highlighted these 3, that our actions should be efficient, obligatory, and readily monitored. So in educational institutions, Pope Francis has an advice that our actions to protect our common home, not only for climate change, should be these 3. These are standards: efficient, obligatory, and readily monitored.
那让这些东西执行，我们教宗也制定3大的执行方向的参考标准。第一个，我们要有效率的来执行；第二个是一个义务的，大家都尽量来参与；那第3个是要有完善监督管理的。
So for ecological education, these schools have adopted their own Laudato Si action plans. And these schools register the action plans in the Laudato Si platform, Laudato Si action platform, like San Beda, St. Louis University, among others. And we have crafted a guidance or guidelines on how to become a Laudato Si school. We call this Laudato Si Schools Framework. And this is a Catholic-inspired approach to be a Laudato school, that our approach should be holistic. And this has 7, based on Laudato Si.
所以在刚才 school 方面，我们看到有这些学校都已经加入我们的Laudato Si的行动平台。那我们也会制定我们的Laudato Si的框架指引，来让学校方面来参询这些标准。
And this has 7. The just transition to clean and sustainable energy. Providence University, check. Because you have solar panels on top of your roof. Responsible water utilization, ecological solid waste management, greening institutional management systems. You have digital systems. Campus's natural environment. You may need to put names on the trees so that students will know what kind of flora and fauna you have. You have integrated ecological curriculum and environmental sustainability research. How much of your research are focused on the environment? You have integrated ecological spirituality and transformative lifestyle, and you give voice to the voiceless. You have policy advocacy campaigns and solidarity.
所以在这边我们可以看到，学校如果你有做到这7大面向的话，你就可以让我们就是满足我们学校的纲领。比如说我们可以看到，假设你有架设太阳能板，或者让水源的回收利用，或者是一些废弃物的回收利用，或者是一些生态教育，以及比如说更多树木的植栽，以及更多的呼吁、更多的倡议，那就表示学校做到这份行动纲领。
What to expect in this eco-action? So, what each eco-action aims to accomplish? You have the potential outcomes. You have the indicators for assessing your achievements. You have policy bases, national laws, SDGs, LAUDATO Si, and recommended activities. So in the guidelines, in the guidance, in the LAUDATO Si Schools framework, we present all this. But it's always good to have bases, your plans of schools, etc.
所以在这么我们纲要指引内，我们可以看到我们这份纲要的目标是什么呢？我们希望带来的产出是什么？我们的政策基础是什么？那我们建议大家采取的行动是什么？这些都在我们的 LAUDATO Si School Framework 有详细的列出。
So, for example, San Beda adopted this LAUDATO Si Schools Framework, and they can also share what they have done as well.
那在这张图我们看到有一间学校，它就参与我们签署这样 LAUDATO Si 的执行，我们可以看到我们互相的分享经验。
We will share this poster to all of you.
好，这张海报也会让大家看到。
And just to close, we have simple ways on how to live LAUDATO Si. Number one is waste management. These are the words of Pope Francis. We'll share this afternoon with the students. We have water conservation. We have food consumption, care for beings, growing trees, energy efficiency, and sustainable transport. These are 7 that are highlighted in LAUDATO Si, the very words of Pope Francis.
刚才我们看到的是学校纲领，但是其实我们个人就可以身体力行而来，从我们身边我们就可以做到一些，比如说节能啊，或者是多栽种树木，这些都是我们个人可以做到的能力。
Yes. Then, lastly, this is our work. Living LAUDATO Si Philippines, working with the Vatican, with the Holy See, and with the Philippine Church. We engage in financial stewardship, that we invest more on sustainability. The associations are helping us. We have the hashtag LS211, little eco actions highlighted in LAUDATO Si passage 211. And we promote LAUDATO Si schools. And we help Providence universities and other universities would adapt the LAUDATO Si schools framework. That's Living LAUDATO Si Philippines, working together with the church. Because at the end, we have LAUDATO Si as a way of life, and sustainability is our future. Good day to all of you.